But that meant there must be a destiny where he survived and won, right? Otherwise, what was the point? And with that, the book's pages fluttered back once more to the beginning, and the clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Skyripper had surfaced. Reynardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong, but he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Skyripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Reynardo. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Reynardo had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Reynardo really leave an old friend to the Ravens? Lapino. Apparently, the Mad Rabbit had sold a Pegasus that he did not exactly own. Lapino always wiggled out of trouble, given time. But he was out of time. Lapino's frantic message said that the Ravens were going to kill him for being a rebel spy. And that he had a clever plan. If the fleet reached him first, they'd string him up for that. Never mind the winged horse. Or so Lapino had told him over the far speaker anyway. Lapino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the Ravens? The Ravens had taken the town. Reynardo had seen villages empty like this. All the people taken away to be sacrificed in the Emperor's secret rituals. Reynardo hoped the people were just hiding. Reynardo looked around the empty village and reflected. The Skyripper had turned out to be far too dangerous to be used. Time to turn to what he knew best. Firewalls only let you through if they think you're hot enough. This one looked familiar. Had he lost this one in a card game? Welcome back, he thought. If they didn't want their things broken, they really ought to make them stronger. He was more and more extraordinary. From the mystical East could make time itself slow for you. The goat. Take the goat across first, Reynardo thought. But it was too late. Hey, why don't you guys fight in groups? Oh, I know. Because there's no I in team. If I craft a sword now, it's going to be really short. Blood on this one, so it hadn't saved its owner. were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lupino. Well, unless he really was a traitor, obviously. Then they'd probably pin a medal on his chest. Lupino would betray him. But now Reynardo knew that. What would Lupino do if he knew that Lupino was going to betray him? Well, he'd concoct some crazy scheme, wouldn't he? That used Lupino's betrayal against him and it would blow up in his face. Maybe he was overthinking this. Well, that would be a first. Dirty and bloody, Reynardo finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Reynardo recognized the cards. It was Lupino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. I am. The ravens are coming. Oh, the prison thing. Right, yeah, we see this guard owed me 53 ducats, so we made a deal. They're very reasonable people, actually, for weasels. Now, I got a brilliant plan to kidnap Zenobia. We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows, and that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who also happened to be a deadly sorcerer and, oh, his only daughter? That would be worth it. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Skyripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power. To make the Skyripper, the Transcendent Emperor had wrapped an armature around the eye of a god. Reynardo had already let that armature slip away to save Lupino's life. But even its core, the eye torn from a god, surely they could fashion a great weapon from that. The core of the Skyripper? Lupino's excited. That's an actual thing that we could just go and get. You've been busy. He sure had. Reynardo told him all the things he'd been up to. Soon they got to talking about old times, about wages they'd won and lost, and scrapes they'd barely got out of. It was good to be back with his friend. True, the core was capable of terrible, uncontrollable destruction. But this time, he was sure it would work great. It's beautiful here, thought Reynardo. It was nice to be back with his old war buddy. All right. Lapino was a traitor. But still, it was good company. Don't look down, he thought. That is a very cool sword, thought Reynardo. No, seriously. He couldn't feel his paw anymore. It didn't rub for the nest, said the lead raven. His sword food teacher used to say power gems were cheating. Stupid old fart. You almost never saw wild gogglers together like this. The toads had to train them not to peck each other to death. So these had to be imperial gogglers. That meant ravens were up ahead. Reynardo felt wrong all over. He could feel an almost palpable sickness in the air. And if the land could have tumors, they would look like these monstrous crystals. The forest was quieter than it had been. There were insects, but few birds, if you didn't count the ravens. Reynardo smelled sick animals and dying ones, but no healthy ones. And getting a bad feeling about this, Reynardo thought. Maybe Lupino was right. Maybe they should have kidnapped Zenobia instead of coming here. The thing about puzzles was, once you solved one, you knew how to solve it again. Puzzles had no, what was the word? Replayability? Reynardo wondered if you could design a puzzle that would be different every time you played with it. Wouldn't that be fun? Open, says me. Said to no one in particular as he died. As he held the radiant icosahedron, Reynardo felt queasy, like dozens of tiny worms were nibbling his insides. It wasn't healthy to be so close to the eye of a god. How could he use it? He could take it to the observatory. The scientists there could tell him how to harness its ancient power. But honestly, Reynardo ached to get away from it. He brought the core back with him to the Farfarer. But honestly, Reynardo ached to be rid of it. Tell you what, said Lupino. I'll take it to the observatory. You attack the Imperial outpost. The Imperial outpost was a vital communications node. Taking it could shatter the Empire's ability to coordinate. And it would be full of secret plans and maps and maybe even rebel prisoners. It was a good target for a hero like Reynardo. But what if Lupino lost the core to the Empire? That could be a good thing, couldn't it? Was Reynardo ready to take that risk? Maybe it was better if he brought the core to the scientists himself. Trust me, Reynardo, you won't regret this. I'll treat the core like it was my own baby daughter. As the Farfarer dived towards the Nexus, Lupino was jumping up and down with excitement. Stop rabbiting around, Reynardo said. Lupino just stared at him. The moment the ship landed, Lupino leapt off the ship. As Lupino vanished into the wilds of the Nexus, Reynardo vaguely remembered Lupino had a baby daughter, didn't he? And he told her mother he was going out to get some Easter eggs, and he'd never come back. But Reynardo was relieved not to carry the core anymore. He was already feeling better. And who knows, maybe this time Lupino would get it right. And if Reynardo could take the outpost, he'd have access to all the Empire's communications in the sector. Right? Reynardo had always wanted a flying carpet. This was more like a flying tabletop. But it would do. The road less traveled, thought Reynardo. How intriguing. To traitors! Caught the ravens. Who leaves these chests everywhere? Wondered Reynardo. I should send him a thank you note. Reynardo caught his breath. His joints still hurt, but he couldn't feel the poison in his system anymore. He'd let the Armature slip out of his hands to save his friend Lupino. Of course he had to let Lupino take the core. The rebellion needed every man doing his duty. And the rabbit would be no good taking on an Imperial outpost, right? The rebellion's time was running out. The intel he would collect from the outpost would give the rebels a small edge in the final battle. But the real game changer was the core. and that was in Lupino's paws. Reynardo hated playing second fiddle. Reynardo took the outpost with a song in his heart. Soon, he was stuffing his sack with key messages from and to the fleet. Then the far-speaker toad chortled a new message. The observatory had been sacked by ravens. Lupino and all the scientists had been taken to the mountains. Why? Why had he trusted Lupino again? And now the Empire had the core. Reynardo hailed the rebel base to warn them. But their far-speaker didn't crouch back. Was the base under attack too? Lupino would have to wait. The core would have to wait. Reynardo had a very bad feeling that something was going terribly wrong at the rebel base. Its location was secret, but secrets can be discovered. There were Imperials everywhere in the ruins, and dead civilians. The ravens were killing everything in sight. Reynardo was relieved to see no rebels among the dead. Maybe the secret base was still secret, but there were huge burn marks on buildings. What monstrous weapon was the Empire using here? The core had great power. Had they harnessed it somehow, even though they didn't have the armature? Something useful in these things, didn't there? The mysterious sword from the east made you so fast you could catch a fly with your chopsticks. If that's what you really wanted. else could you hook? The right jewel could really give you an edge. The wrong, well, it still looked pretty, didn't it? There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady foxes, with pictures and addresses and everything. Gem of power. Ooh, you didn't find those every day. He could smell charred flesh and hear screams. The ruins were on fire, but the Ravens had rigged up the core as some kind of burning ray. They wouldn't need to know the secret location. They were burning everything. It was killing them too. Their black feathers littered the path. He would have to take the core from them. It was the last thing he wanted to do. Where Reynardo went next, we cannot follow. Yet. The rebel base seemed quiet. That was good. Also, it seemed to be burning. That wasn't so good. Alas, they had to bury him in a bucket. Actually, several buckets. Breeze through his armor. Oh dear, that wasn't good. Not everyone knew how to use magical gems. Of course, not everyone had magical gem gauntlets like he did. As the last raven fell, Reynardo felt worse than he ever had. The core was killing him, again. The council members cautiously came out into the smoke. "You saved us," croaked the speaker. They would put the weaponized core deep in a cavern, she promised, where its poison could harm no one. They would heal him if they could, she said. No, he's a weapon now. We need one. I'll lead the charge. "It will kill you," croaked the speaker. "I guess it already has," Reynardo said. She bobbed her head gravely. "When all this is over," she said, "we'll name our new capital city for you." He flew towards the Imperial fleet, a myriad ships in disciplined formation, waiting for the signal to destroy the rebellion forever. Behind him, the rebels were charging. If he failed, they would die. And so the final battle began. Everything hurt. It was unpleasant to fight this way. With each blow he struck with his sword, he felt weaker. Yet each time the core fired, it got brighter. As if the heat from the burning ravens and buildings only fed its hunger. He wondered where Lapina was. Wasn't he supposed to be in the battle? No. He'd been captured, hadn't he? Oh, Reynardo's mind was smoky now, like the burning fleet. He hoped this wouldn't take long. He hadn't noticed that path before. Reynardo had once invested in a jewel store, but it lost money because someone kept robbing it. Twist, it was him. Felt like Tarzan. Reynardopolis. Vulpus Major? Lando Nardo. If they were going to name a capital city after him, well, he just wished he had a better name. Where was Lupino? He missed Lupino's bitter outbursts. Or did he? Lupino had gotten him into this mess, hadn't he? The core was a wonderful weapon. It swept fire across the fleet. Ravens exploded in his gaze, and with every heartbeat, it grew brighter. He would die. But he would die every inch a hero. Spectacularly, changing history, like the legendary heroes of lore. Or was it war? He couldn't remember anymore. Sometimes, Reynardo really hated inanimate objects. There was an inscription, no spitting. Reynardo fell to his knees. The Emperor's bodyguards were lined up before his ship, fierce ravens all. And Zenobia. She was conjuring. He could not take another step. All he could do was fire the core. The ravens, Zenobia, the ship, all burst into flames, disintegrated, and blew away. So they had one, after all. The core grew brighter. He shielded his eyes, but he could still see it through his sleeves and through the flesh of his arm. And then he felt heat, as the fire grew to consume both fleets. And then he felt nothing. And, just like that, he was alive again, and back on the Farfarer, still fleeing burning Ubar. The book was still open before him. So, the book was a portal. It took you to the future, when your destinies would branch. He had failed and died 3 times, and he hadn't learned anything new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome.